Hey everybody, Seth Campbell here, and welcome to the new Segue Says podcast. Well, as you can see, I'm filming this one back in Amesbury, and of course there's been a bit of a delay getting this one posted. We've been spending different holidays in different places. Basically, I'm just taking whatever time I have, so there may be some interruptions, various noises from the people goofing around in the basement, the washing machine, the dishwasher. Can't be helped. This week we're going to examine a new concept, and it's the use of space or ambience to link two songs. It helps that these songs are both in the same key and have a very atmospheric sense to them already. They're pretty different in terms of where they come from. The first is rather an outlier in my repertoire. It's the Thunder Rolls by Garth Brooks, although the version I play is based on Celtic Thunder's version. And the second song is Fortress Around Your Heart by Sting. Now, of course, Sting's incredible vocal range makes it very difficult for me to sing, so hopefully you can bear with me. But the original version of the Thunder Rolls is in D minor, but the Celtic Thunder version, which I mentioned, is in G minor, and that's the version I'm going to be playing, because Fortress Around Your Heart, at least in the verse, is also in G minor. Now, both of these songs actually use ambient effects of rain and thunder in them, so that kind of brought them together for me in the first place. But what you'll hear is that both of them have a lot going on in the right hand, or in the recording's guitar, while the bass just kind of holds on this G. Incidentally, you can probably hear this. This low G is the one note that's really out of tune on this piano right now. So again, hopefully you can forgive me. It's just the best time to film this happens to be on this piano, tuned or non-tuned. Anyway, Thunder Rolls is a great song. Garth Brooks, of course, is a renowned country artist, but a lot of the stuff he does is closer to straightforward pop rock, if you ask me, and this is one of those. It's a song about, shall we say, a man's extracurricular activities being discovered by his wife. This verse chorus. 3:30 in the morning, not a soul in sight. City's looking like a ghost town on a moonlit summer night. Raindrops on the windshield, there's a storm moving in. He's coming back from somewhere that he never should have been. The thunder rolls, and the thunder rolls. Again, the right hand is doing this echoey pattern over the left hand holding the note. Every light is burning in a house across town. She's waiting by the telephone in a faded flannel gown, asking for a miracle, hoping she's not right, praying it's the weather that's kept him out all night. The thunder rolls, and the thunder rolls. The thunder rolls, and the lightning strikes. And the night was cold on a sleepless night, as the storm moves on out of control. Deep in her heart, the thunder rolls. And so as you can see, the song builds into this incredibly powerful, hard-hitting chorus, but then when the chorus ends, it drops back and fades into this ambience again. Speaking of ambience, the washing machine is insisting on making its presence known. This is probably the most chaotic and interfered with podcast to date, but you'll just have to put up with it as much as I am. Now, Fortress Around Your Heart is from Sting's debut solo album, Dream of the Blue Turtles. I think this is the first Sting solo song that I've done in a Segue podcast. I know I've done several by the Police, but It's a great story of a man trying to make amends with a woman whose heart he broke many years ago. And if you want, you could kind of stitch together a story between these two songs. That maybe it's the same couple, and the man is what he's trying to make amends for in this song is the affair he's having in the previous song. Although if you include the verse that only appears in the live versions of the Garth Brooks Thunder Rolls song, and it's not in all the live versions, there's a third verse. Let's just say if you include that verse, then this can't be the same couple. Look up the verse, you'll see why. This is Fortress Around Your Heart, and as I said, the verse is in G. The chorus switches to E minor, things get complicated. It's a Sting song, what do you expect? This is the ambient riff. Under the ruins of a walled city, crumbling towers and beams of yellow light, no flags of truce, no cries of pity. Siege guns have been pounding through the night. Took a day to build the city. We walk through its streets in the afternoon. As I return across the fields I know, I recognize the walls that I once made. Had to stop in my tracks for fear of walking on the mines I laid and I built this fortress around your heart. And so goes you with trenches and barbed wire. Let me build a bridge, for I cannot fill the chasm. Let me set the battlements on fire. So much like the Thunder Rolls, you have very ambient and sparse verses that build up into an incredibly powerful chorus before breaking down again. Now, as you can probably hear, the tempos of these songs are very different, so obviously this is not going to be a back and forth segue. You could probably do it both ways. I like to do the Thunder Rolls first, and then Fortress Around Your Heart. And here's how. Usually when we've done a segue in these videos in the past, we find a way to go right from one song to the other, or groove on one song long enough to transform it into the other. Now this time, we're going to utilize a very ambiguous concept, and I'm doing this more just to demonstrate the concept than for this specific segue, because it's such an open-ended thing that you could really do whatever you want with it. But you have the end of Thunder Rolls. Deep in her heart, the thunder rolls. Essentially fades out on this. Well, great advantage of being a piano player, it'd be difficult to do this on another instrument. You keep the tempo for a while, but start just noodling in the upper portion of the piano. Works a lot better using higher notes. Because both of these songs are in the key of G minor, you keep it in G minor. Eventually you can let the tempo kind of drift off, and people might think you're doing sort of a fade out ending like that, but if you were to keep playing, you're essentially creating this very rubato ambient space. Basically, you can play without time. Once you've gone on for a few seconds, people realize this isn't the end. You're actually doing something here. And this is basically improvisation. And you'll see why I don't demonstrate that many of this type of segue. Because it's so open-ended, I could just do whatever here. It doesn't really matter much. eventually just morph what you're doing into the riff of Fortress Around Your Heart. And bring the bass in strong when you want to establish that you're in the new song. Now the cool thing about interludes that utilize space like that is you can tease or cameo little songs or melodies that some people might know, others might not. David Paich of Toto does this all the time. You see, even when it's not a Toto song, I manage to find a way to get them into this. But a lot of times when he's sort of noodling to get them from one song to another, he'll tease some other song that's not in the set list that night, and a few people will notice it and enjoy it. And Bruce Hornsby does that similarly, although with him it's more avant-garde neoclassical stuff, 12-tone Schoenberg or whatever that he's teasing, so the number of people who get it is much smaller. But with this particular song, in between the two, there are a couple of actually video game melodies that I like to play. And video game melodies tend to work great for segues, and there will probably be a few demonstrations of those in future. But, like for example, when I'm noodling around here, sometimes I'll end up playing the map screen theme from the Mass Effect games. Or for those who are fans of even lesser known games, Metroid Other M, the mysterious ambience. And again, these take place in the higher range of the piano. They're in G minor and they're very ambient, so they work perfectly for something like this. But of course, you could really do anything. You could play any melody. You'd probably, for this example, because the two songs are in the same key, want to keep it in G minor. So whether you'd have to transpose it or not, that's up to you. But basically, when you're working with space, you can do just about anything you want. So again, it works best in the upper notes of the piano. Lower bass tones tend to establish a beat, which when you're working with ambience, you don't want. You can find examples of space jams a lot. If you look at Grateful Dead live records, for example, there is almost always drums and space.
What are you talking
I'm filming my Segue podcast. My dad, Todd Campbell, making his first appearance in the Segue podcast. I warned you this episode was going to be chaotic. Anyway. Yeah, and Ping Pong the Corgi also making her first appearance in the Segue podcast. This is getting out of hand fast. But since I've already filmed this and it's after midnight, I no longer have the energy to do it again. So this is going to be a warts and all episode. So hopefully you've learned something. But as I was saying, you can go look at pretty much any live Grateful Dead record, and there'll be a track just called Space, and that's essentially what this is. It usually comes after a drum solo, in which the different players will hold notes, just play little ditties or riffs out of time, before eventually conforming into the next song in the set that they're going to play. So as I mentioned, this is a very open-ended concept, and it's not likely one that I'm going to feature a lot in the Segue podcast. But I did want to show you how to do it, because this is kind of how when I was first learning to come up with segues, most of them were like this. You had to create a certain ambience. It took me a while to figure out how to leap from one song to the other. So this is a great tool, and there are still some segues like this one that there really is not, at least to my knowledge, no better way to do it. So it's a great tool I wanted to illustrate to you and give you a perspective on how it's used. So thanks for watching. Thanks for putting up with all of the madness going on around me here. Hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully you've enjoyed. And have a very happy new year. Travel safe. I will see you next week.